to some of the best poker players in the world. Hello and welcome to the 7th Annual World Series of Poker Europe. I'm David Tuckman, and we are here for the main event final table, the final 6. Our chip leader right now, Adrian Mateos, looking for his first ever World Series of Poker bracelet, just 19 years old. The Spaniard, relatively new to the game, but already has a lot of results, over 300,000 in earnings. And this guy has a whopping 180 big blinds. Dominic Nietzsche, a force, one of the many very good young German players in the game. Already has a World Series of Poker bracelet. And there's the amateur. There is the wild card. He satellited in for 10 euros. It's Jerome Huget, the Frenchman, 38-year-old real estate agent, looking for a big score, looking to turn 10 euros into 1 million euros. That's the prize. Adrian Mateos, who I mentioned, 189 big blinds. These players are incredibly deep. Raghi Raghavan, the 27-year-old from Chicago, Illinois, with 42 big blinds. He won the Bellagio 5-star, 5-diamond last December. Benny Spindler, a huge name in Europe. If you haven't heard of Benny Spindler, you'll certainly know his name at the end of today. And here's what they're playing for. We saw the bracelet already. Shannon Shore, Andrei Konopelko were gone in 8th and 7th, respectively. First place, 1 million euros. Our tournament director, Jack Effel, on the floor with the player introductions.
Hello and welcome to the 2013 World Series of Poker Europe. We are here for the final table of the 10,000 euro main event. There are 6 players remaining with a 10,000 small blind, 20,000 big blind, and a 3,000 ante. There are 75 minutes, 19 seconds remaining. Best of luck to all these players. Dealers, please shuffle up and deal.
It's Jack Effel, the World Series of Poker Tournament Director. Final 6 players. The 7th Annual World Series of Poker Europe. We've been here for 2 weeks. And it culminates with this. Last night was a special night. We saw Daniel Negreanu not only win his 6th bracelet, but he secured his 2nd World Series of Poker Player of the Year, won his first one back in 2004. Joining me in the booth is bracelet winner Jackie Glazier. Jackie, how does that sound? Bracelet winner.
It sounds fantastic. Yeah, really happy to be leaving this town with a bracelet.
Yeah.
I bet for sure. What do you expect now? You give some stars of the game to our American audience. These players might not be as well known, but we've got some big names in here. That is a look at Fabrice Soulier, one of the Frenchman's most accomplished players. He has a gold bracelet. He won in the $10,000 horse event in 2011 for over $600,000. His tournament results date back to 2000. He includes 5 WSOP final tables. His career earnings stand at 4.1 million, putting him just behind David Benjamin on France's all-time money list.
Yeah, I've played with Fabrice. He's obviously a very experienced player at this table. Yeah, he's a nice guy as well, so it'd be good to see him snatch up a 2nd bracelet.
What do you expect to see at the start of this? These players are extremely deep. Average blind is 90. Average stack is 93 big blinds deep. So very rarely, I don't think ever in my commentary have I seen a final table this deep with 6 players remaining. It's almost like a cash game.
Right. I mean, they are extra deep, but a lot of these players have a lot of experience as well. It's not like the table, you know, has half, you know, some amateurs and half pros. So I think that they're going to be probably taking it a little bit easy to start off with and, yeah, filling out the table.
There's a look at Benny Spindler. This is the German's 2nd World Series of Poker main event final table of the year. He previously finished 6th in the World Series of Poker APAC main event for over 150K. He's also an EPT title holder, winning the EPT London main event in 2011. He final tabled WPT Marrakesh. And his career earnings currently stand just under 4 million. Benny Spindler on the left side of your screen in kind of that black and white sweater. Fabrice Soulier just to his left. Dominic, the German, to his left. And I remember actually doing commentary for him when he won the LAPT in Argentina
Okay.
a few years back. That was his coming out party.
I'm a big fan of Dominic. He's spent a bit of time in Australia, and yeah, I've played with him a lot. And
Is he as crazy as he seems on the table? Because he's such a sicko at the table.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's a smart player. At the end of I don't think he's just crazy. I think he picks his spots pretty well, and yeah, he does tend to do some crazy things. I think that's part of the adrenaline rush for him.
We had a lot of fun watching a German last night, Philipp Grusom. He finished in 3rd place, and tonight we have two more very prolific Germans at this table. 2 Frenchmen, 2 Germans, a Spaniard, and 1 player from the United States among our final 6. Blinds are 10,000, 20,000, the 3,000 ante. Fabrice was the raiser. Dominique called. And the amateur,
How must he
Jerome
be feeling?
Huget. Well, man, I mean, you wonder, I'm sure he's nervous, right? He must be nervous. He's an amateur, but at the same time, he's turned 10 euros into a minimum of, let's see, what is it? I was going to say a minimum of about 150,000 euros. I mean, 7th place paid 101,000 for Andrei Konopelka. So this guy, I mean, on one side, I think he's nervous, but the other side,
I don't
he's
know.
got to be, he's free rolling.
I think that if it was sort of one of my first sort of tournaments and I was sitting there, I was thinking, maybe I'm thinking this is sort of normal stuff that goes on. Whereas when you've been playing for a long time and you get to this point, you know how few opportunities you have to be in this position.
A lot of people are probably familiar with you watching the ESPN coverage of the World Series of Poker main event. I was familiar with you a year before that, obviously, when you finished in 2nd in a World Series of Poker event. What was your first televised experience like? The first time the cameras were on you, the lights were on you. How did that feel?
Yeah, it was an Aussie Millions event, actually, and I got seated at a table with Gus Hansen and got involved in a hand with him as well. I don't know. I think being a female too, you have that added pressure. Is like, you know, does my makeup look all right, or you know, am I looking all right on the camera? But as far as being scrutinised with how you play hands, it's a little bit of extra pressure as well.
He calls. It's heads up between him and Fabrice.
Well, 2 hands in. We've seen 2 raises from Fabrice. This time Spindler calls from the big blind. Flop is 9, 10, 6, 2 diamonds. Did you, when the day was done, did you feel like the cameras and the lights affected your play?
I think the first time I was on a televised table, yes, I would have to say. Probably it made me make decisions knowing that they were going to be watched by other people. I don't know. I think I'd be lying to say it didn't somehow just slightly.
Yeah, I always wonder. More on that in a second. The yellow chips, by the way, if you're new to the broadcast, welcome to the 7th Annual World Series of Poker Europe main event, down to our final 6. Yellow chips are 1,000, gray chips are 5,000. The red chips are 25,000, and those fancy plaques that we see when we come to France, those are 100,000 each. They're so classy.
They do. They look sort of James Bondish. Like.
Yeah, I love them. Fantastic. Do you think it affected your game adversely? Get a check raise here from Spindler.
Ben raises to 90,000.
Now, I know you played in the main event. Have you played with Fabrice? You mentioned you played with Dominic. Have you played with Spindler before?
I don't think I have. I'm actually not very good with facial recognition after I've played with someone, which is a leak in my game, I think. But I've seen him around, and obviously he's done some great stuff in Australia as well during APAC. So
Fabrice makes the call. Pot is now 298,000. For the record, I actually had dinner with you. I had drinks with you. Then I saw you 6 months later, and you didn't know who I was. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Fabrice was the original raiser. He raised under the gun. Spindler defended from the big blind. It went check, bet, check, raise. Action is on Spindler. play yesterday was fast.
It was.
It was fast and furious, to say the least. Not much tanking at all. A little bit more deliberate already today, which not a surprise. 1 million euros up top. Spindler bets 125,000. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, if you aren't familiar with who Benny Spindler is, you will by the end of the day. Fantastic talent.
Fabrice makes the call.
And already a big hand developing between the players who are both have a lot of chips, actually. Spindler started this hand with 1.7 million. Fabrice started this hand with just under 2 million. You can see the chips and the players at the top of your screen. 3 of clubs, irrelevant.
Well, I've seen so much action so early on. It's great.
Well, the one thing that's going to be a lot of fun, you know, a lot of times in tournaments, especially at final tables, the average stack might be 35 big blinds deep.
Right.
So a lot of the play is pre-flop. At this final table, with the average stack being 93 big blinds, we're going to see a lot of post-flop play. We'll see a lot of turn and river play.
And especially because we've got so many experienced players at the table, that's going to be the case. They like playing post-flop more than a less experienced player would want to. I think maybe Jerome's going to be more, I would assuming, wanting to play a little bit more pre-flop, but these guys are happy to get to a river.
How thin are you value betting if you're Spindler here? And he check raised that flop. Are you value betting 2 pair?
Yeah, I'd definitely be value betting 2 pair.
So 2 pair or better, you're value betting, and you're hoping to get called by an overpair?
Benjamin bets 300,000.
Spindler bets 300 into 548. So he followed up the check raise with 2 more bullets. Action is on for Fabrice, getting a little bit under 3-1 on the call, and he's going to make the call.
And Fabrice makes the call.
And Spindler just auto mucks.
Wow.
You have to show Fabrice.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, you do.
Fabrice shows a king-high diamond flush.
Well, there you go. It's an easy
Wow.
call.
Yeah.
So Spindler was making a move with the ace-jack. Fabrice calls down with the king-high flush. You like the way Soulier played the hand?
I mean, obviously now that we've seen Spindler's hand, I don't think he's going to get much more out of the pot without Spindler
Clearly
bluffing
not.
into it. But I don't know. If I play King Jack and I end up a suited King Jack and I end up hitting my flush, I'm hoping that if Spindler has something like 2 pair, I might get a little bit extra on the river. I don't know if I just flat call there with the second nuts.
Are you? I guess the question is, if you raise with the king-high flush, can you get called by worse? I mean, let's say Spindler did have 2 pair, or actually flopped the straight. Let's say at 7-8.
I mean, his bet on the river was pretty big too, so it's probably going to be hard to get a raise in there and probably get a call even by 2 pair. But
and you're sick if you raise and then Spindler shoves.
right, of course.
Adrian raises 30,000 to 130,000 total.
Dominic Nietzsche raises to 50,000. Once again, the blinds are 10,000, 20,000. Dominic raising to 2.5x. That's 2.5 times the big blind. Once again, David Tuchman, Jackie Glazier in the booth. Adrian Mateos, the Spaniard, 3-betting to 130,000. Action now on Spindler, who's now down to under 1.2 million. Down to under 60 big blinds. Pretty significant pot. Fabrice Soulier up to 2.57 million.
How much was the 50?
50.
Have you played against the 19-year-old, Mateos?
No, I haven't.
How would you characterize Fabrice's play, though? Is he more of a tag, a tight and aggressive player? Is he does he play a lot of pots?
So the time that I played with him was during the 3K that I came second in, and we were down to around about 30 players. From memory, I think he was quite short at that point. So I
Hard to
can't,
get a
I
read.
can't, yeah. It wasn't like he was deep and making moves or anything like that. So I think he was just waiting for spots to get his chips in. So.
Spindler woke up with, you know, he's got a date at like 3 o'clock.
200.
Spindler's got somewhere to be. He's got a hot date at 3 o'clock.
Maybe.
3 hands in. We have seen him check raise and then fire 2 more bullets with just ace high. And here, the cold 4-bet up to 280,000. Action back over to Dominic. And I think you said it well. I've done a lot of commentary with him, and he is capable of anything. A very, very aggressive young German player. But I feel like in the last couple of years, he's dialed it back, and
Right.
he kind of feels, he knows when to kind of step on the pedal and when to pull back.
I mean, if I was to bet on who I think would win, I would put my money on Dominic. I have a lot of respect for his game, and I think that while some people do find him a little bit crazy at the table, maybe it's part of his method, you know, and then...
Method of the madness.
Right.
So the original raise was from Dominic. Dominic wearing the blue sweatshirt right in the center of your screen. Our chip leader is wearing kind of that orange salmon shirt just to his left. That is Adrian Mateos, the Spaniard. Gentleman in the black hat, by the way, that is Raghi Raghavan, 27-year-old from Chicago, Illinois, who won the 5-Diamond Classic last December in Bellagio for about $1 million. Nietzsche does not want to let this one go. And there's the 5-bet.
To 440,000.
This is all pre-flop. This is just 3 hands in.
Wow.
And we get a quick fold, and Spindler with 9-3. Telling you, Spindler, he's got somewhere to go. He's either going to win this tournament by 3 o'clock or he's going to be gone by 3.
Nope.
Well,
Not at all.
I mean, he's unfortunate that Dominic's woken up with aces there. I mean, sometimes you pick a spot and your timing's just terrible, isn't it?
Other notable results on Spindler's resume, by the way, include a 3rd place finish in the PCA main event in 2009.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
He had a runner-up finish in the EPT Grand Final High Roller event in 2011. Dominic Nietzsche, by the way, his career earnings stand at $2.4 million. He's won a WPT title, he's won an LAPT title, and he's won a bracelet.
Yeah.
And big blind, please.
So he's kind of won like 2.5 of the 3 Triple Crown.
And his results, they are very global if you look at his results around the world.
He just dominated. I remember doing the commentary for the LAPT, and it was just, you could see how outmatched the field was against him.
Yeah.
It was just, in a weird way, I mean, he was the youngest at the table by far, but it was like a man playing with boys in terms of poker experience. You could just say how much more poker he had played than everybody else. Spindler playing another hand. Spindler raises to 40,000.
40,000. And Benjamin won.
Spindler, by the way, now down to 900,000 chips. Spindler came into today's final table with 1.748 million. And has lost pretty much half of that stack in just 4 hands. Unfortunately for him, doesn't get any action when he has ace-king.
Right. I don't know, maybe he came in with thought he was going to take some control of the table and play pretty aggressively, but obviously he hasn't been working. He's run into aces and the second nut flush. Maybe it's just poor timing.
Daniel Negreanu obviously won last night's tournament, but he also won the APAC main event. Just a tremendous performance. Benny Spindler came into that final table as a chip leader, ended up finishing in 6th, and came into that final table pretty much the same way as he came into here. The difference was he was chip leader there. Here he was
40,000. Action over to Fabrice.
actually right in the middle. Yeah, I mean, you're talking, he was actually 4th. I mean, not much in, he had a ton of chips. He had 93 big blinds, but still right in the middle.
I didn't arrive till they were 5-handed, so I missed.
You missed that?
Yeah. Stayed to the end.
You missed the Benny Spindler section of the show.
I did. I stayed to the end because obviously supporting Nikolai. An 888 ambassador. It was great to see him get second place. And
you were talking about last night. I'm actually referencing the APAC main event last year.
Okay. I thought you were talking about it yesterday.
No, Benny Spindler. He didn't make yesterday's high roller.
Okay.
At the APAC main event in April in Australia, the one that Daniel Negreanu won, Spindler came to that final table as our chip leader.
Wow.
Ended up finishing in 6th, and came in guns a-blazing right from the start there too. And you can see that, obviously trying to set a tone. Hasn't worked, obviously, here. Let's talk about for a second Daniel Negreanu and just what his accomplishments really mean.
Jerome is first and he folds.
4 final tables this year, 2 bracelets, a 2nd place finish, a 4th place finish, and now a 2nd player of the year for his poker
It's
resume.
amazing. I mean, he obviously loves the game. He loves playing, which I think is fantastic as well.
It's up to Rob.
But to have such longevity in the game and have such results, yeah.
Here's Robbie
Amazing.
Raghavan, the 27-year-old from Northbrook, Illinois. Calls Chicago his home.
He makes the call.
And he is part of that accomplished group of University of Illinois alum that turned poker pros like Faraz Jaka, Mohsen Sharania, Andy Seth, and others. Raghavan, a WPT title holder, calls. Flop is King 8-3. He checks. This is our 6th hand of the final table.
2 checks.
Ben checks.
Spindler has played 5 of them, I believe.
I was going to say, yeah, Spindler's got a high percentage of hands so far.
Well, as Antonio Esfandiari always says, it's hard to make a hand in Hold'em. Unfortunately for Spindler, his opponents are making hands.
Right.
Or having hands. Raghavan bets 60,000.
Our amateur at the table has been sitting there fairly quiet. Do you think on his mind might be that he might be trying to jump up a few pay levels?
I mean, he's by far the short stack, but the way Spindler's playing right now, that definitely might be in his mind. He's also not that short. He's got about 27 big blinds.
Yeah.
28 big blinds, so.
I mean, he can afford to sit there and not play a lot of hands and let the other guys play aggressively and knock each other out for a while at least.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know how he got here.
No,
whether it was he played phenomenally well, because I think the line between pro and amateur has become somewhat blurred over the last couple of years. There are many amateurs that are fantastic, and there are many pros that, in my opinion, aren't that good. That said, we'll see how Xu plays going forward. The Frenchman, 38 years old, got here on a 10-euro satellite. Raghavan has bet 150,000 into Spindler. Pot is 378. Getting about 2.5 to 1 to make the call. And there's a look at the 27-year-old. And there's Spindler. Once again, Jackie Glazier joining me in the booth. I think Spindler's trying to decide if he can raise Raghavan off the hand. I just have this strange feeling that Spindler doesn't really have a hand. What do you think? Like, and he's just trying to think, okay, can I raise my opponent off of it?
Yeah.
And he gives it up. Let's see.
Ben folds.
Spindler's got ace queen.
Yeah.
One of those spots where I've got a bluff catcher, but can I turn my bluff catcher into a bluff and raise him? Picked up a gut shot, and Raghavan was dominated pre-flop, but catches the king, wins that pot, and Raghavan now up to 958,000. Spindler at 886. Our amateur, Jerome Xu, at 564. Our chip leader continues to be the Spaniard, though, the 19-year-old Adrian Mateos. A lot of people are familiar with you from the ESPN coverage of the main event, where you made a great run. Spindler now with 886,000 chips has lost pretty much half of his stack in just 6 hands.
He's looking fairly frustrated at the moment, too.
Just gotta slow down for you. You don't have to win the tournament in 15 hands, though.
Right.
I mean, I understand being frustrated, but I mean, it just, you know, it's one of those things. I always tell myself when I sit down at a poker tournament, I don't play many poker tournaments, but same thing in cash. You don't have to, like, I don't have to make my entire day's nut, so to speak. I don't have to make all the money in the first 9 minutes of my play. I don't have to win the tournament in the first hour. You can't win the tournament in the first hour. And Spindler raises again. So 6 out of 7 hands now. He has either raised, he's opened, he's either 3-bet or he's 4-bet. He has voluntarily entered 6 out of 7 hands, though. A lot of people are familiar with you from the World Series of Poker main event, the coverage on ESPN. You finished in 31st.
Yes.
You were the last woman standing. You made a great run, and a lot of people were cheering for you when it was all said and done. The November 9 is right around the corner. November 4th and 5th will be airing on ESPN, so make sure you watch that.
Yes.
Very exciting. How many of those final 9 have you played with, and who are some of your favorites going into November 9?
JC is definitely...
JC Tran?
Yeah, just I played with him a bit this year in a couple of events, actually, and he's just such a gracious, humble guy, and I don't know, like, I'm just a really big fan of his. And he's a family man, been playing poker for a long time. I would love to see him get there.
More on JC Tran in a second. Spindler bets 25,000. The 38-year-old amateur, Shigshээ, has checked. Now, he defended from the big blind, and I'm not going to begin to guess what kind of hand that he would defend with. I just don't know, but it doesn't look like he wants to give this one up, though.
No.
Earlier on, he defended with ace-6. You know, I mean, the fact that he's thinking about it, you'd imagine that he's got a piece of this. It's a very dry board.
Yes. I mean, like you said too, I don't know how he got here. I didn't really see a lot of reporting on a lot of his hands either, so...
His hand's shaking a little bit, and I always feel, to me, hand shaking means you've got a hand that you're going to go with. It's a little bit of a live tell, and he raises. And I think it's one of those, like, sometimes that shaking hand is, it's just an involuntary motion, and I caution people to rely on that because it can be other things. But when an amateur is shaking, I feel like more often than not, it is a hand.
Yeah, it's not because he's had too much caffeine or anything.
He knows it's almost like my tournament could be on the line right now.
Right.
Is the deuce of clubs.
You wouldn't imagine the deuce of clubs changes much.
I mean, it could be you're either nervous about your hand or excited about your hand either. It could be either way.
Right. These are the 2 short stacks. Spindler has Shigshээ covered. Shigshээ with 564 at the start of the hand. And if you see the chip counts at the top of your screen, those are their starting stacks at the beginning of the hand. Shigshээ now with about probably closer to 480,000. And he's going to check raise and then check. What's that indicative of?
I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure about how much experience he actually has even had before this satellite. So
sometimes playing against inexperienced players can be the toughest thing because it's really hard to know what their thought process is.
For sure.
Spindler bets 25,000 into 208,000. Shigshээ check raised, he min check raised, and then check calls. Bizarre hand. Pot is now 258,000.
I don't know. Maybe he's in there something like ace-jack or something. He's just now worried about his hand.
Right, he check raised at like ace-7 to find out where he was at. Then he got called and got nervous.
Something like that's what I would be thinking. Like, I think he's got the ace in his hand, but now that his check raise was called, he's feeling a little bit more uncomfortable about it.
If you're Spindler, and you know your opponent's got, say, ace-7 or something like that.
See, but I was thinking maybe something like ace-jack, but now the queen's come out, I don't know. Maybe he seems more comfortable with it now.
If he bets here, I think he's got a pretty strong hand. We'll see how this one plays out. Just a question, if you're Spindler, do you think you can get away with a bluff? Can you get your opponent to fold a weak ace with Spindler's image?
I mean,
Sit 7, right?
That certainly looks like a blocker bet to me.
45,000.
Jerome bets 45,000.
I just really want to see their hands now.
You will see the hand at the end, by the way. If you're just joining the broadcast, we hide the hands until the end, and that's when we do the reveal, so you can play along at home.
Sit 2, raises.
This is what, and there, Spindler raises. This is one of those spots where you know your opponent's doing a blocker bet. The problem is, I just don't know if Huget will fold.
Sit 7,
Jerome folds.
And he does, and Huget's got jacks and Spindler at 2 pair.
I don't think you're showing your shot.
King, queen of hearts. Not in the mood.
I'm blown away that Huget did not 3-bet pre-flop.
Like,
As active as
just-
Spindler is, how do you not 3-bet?
Yeah, he's played like nearly every single hand. You wake up with jacks. I'm like beside myself with enjoyment at that point.
That'll be cool.
Thinking,
Oh,
especially
Fine.
Spindler
Right
has
away,
been
right
looking a
away,
little bit
fine.
frustrated. I'm thinking if I'm going
Yeah,
to
you
raise there
want to
that
play limit home against me.
I could, I mean,
I do.
Yeah.
get him to spew off a few more chips would be great. But
Welcome to the 2013 World Series of Poker Europe main event, final table, final 6. We're in the beautiful Casino Barrière inside the theater. David Tuckman, Jackie Glazier, and our chip leader continues to be Adrian Mateos with 3.6 million. Spindler back over 1 million. And Jerome Huget, the Frenchman, the amateur at this table, the wild card, down to 401,000 chips. Played that hand a little bit unconventionally, check raising with the jacks. I'm assuming to kind of find out where he was at.
yeah, it was obvious then he was uncomfortable with his hand after the check raise got called. But
Sit 5, take 5.
Mateos raises and then takes that one down.
Sit 7.
And that's sometimes really difficult. How do you do that? And at the World Series of Poker main event, you get to play against a lot of inexperienced players. You play against a lot of amateurs. I'm assuming when you're playing against pros, you know, sometimes you can understand their thought process. They might not be easy to play against, obviously, but at the same time, at least you kind of can see where they're coming from. Playing against amateurs can sometimes be very, very difficult.
yeah, I mean, it's the same as when you play a home game with friends that don't really know how to play. I'm always like, what have they got? But I think especially, I mean, the World Series of Poker in Vegas, there's such a massive starting field. The chances that you're going to be sitting down with some experienced pros in the first few days is quite remote. But you need to get through those early days.
Back over to Ben.
I mean, you're so deep anyway to start off with.
I mean, how often have you faced a river bet from an inexperienced player, and you're left there wondering, is he betting for value? Is he bluffing? Or and then he turns the hand over, and you still don't know if he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. I mean, it does happen a lot, but
Spindler raises again. 9 hands in, Spindler has played 7. Fabrice looking him up. Fabrice second all-time on the money list for French players, just behind David Benjamin.
215,000.
He's one of 13 Frenchmen to have won a bracelet.
65,000 more.
so how many Spindler's
3-bet back over to Spindler.
obviously entering another pot, volunteering into another pot. It's very active today.
Ben folds and Fabrice will win this.
Spindler gives it up.
Sit 3,
And
take
aggressive play from Fabrice. I mean, you know, if your opponent's opening that wide, that wide, you just can't have it all the time. So getting back to the November 9, which is airing on ESPN November 4th and 5th. You mentioned J.C. Trent. more so than your favorites, who are, in your opinion, the best players remaining in the field? I'm putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot.
Come on, you played with these guys.
Okay, run through them. Who have we got? So Jay Faber obviously is not a full-time poker player. We've got JC.
You've got Ryan Reese.
Ryan Reese, I played with him a lot on I think day 5. He's a great player, but he's quite young, I think. So I'm not sure how much experience he's got behind him before November 9.
Yeah, Ryan's 23. It's tough though. It's funny, you know, back in the days when Maury Escandani and the game was if a young 23 or a 21-year-old kid walked into the casino, the pros were licking their chops.
Yeah.
In today's world, that's not the same thing. Obviously, with online poker, you know, players can players get a ridiculous amount of experience in a short amount of time. And we see that all the time with 26, 27-year-old players who have actually played more tournaments than Doyle Brunson has.
Right.
Spindler raises again. I feel like an LA weatherman. It's sunny. It's sunny and it's 80 degrees. Fabrice, 3 bets. Spindler folds. Spindler down to about 950,000 chips. Oh, there's the final table chip count. And Jerome Huget, our short stack, Spindler on the other side there with 952,000. And our big stacks right in the middle, Mateos, 3.6 million. And this is by seating position. And you can see that Mateos, not only does he have the chips, but he's got a great position at the table because he's got position on the other 2 big stacks.
Right.
And he's got the short stacks behind him.
Yeah, definitely great table draw for Mateos. Definitely don't want, especially like Dominic or obviously Spindler's very active at the moment to be on your left at the moment.
Huget all in for 379,000. He's got 19 big blinds, open shove. And they're going to fold around. He's going to take it. At what point do you start shoving all in?
I mean, it depends on the hand, obviously, and the action before it. I don't really. I'm
I'm not going to open shove.
I'm not going to open. No, I'm not.
Is it 19 big blinds or is it 15
no,
big blinds?
it would be less. Be less. It would. Even these, it depends on how deep the table is too, and the other chip stacks. Obviously, there's some tournaments you play where the average chip stack at whatever point could be around about 15 big blinds. So obviously, I'm not shoving 15 big blinds at that point. But if players are really deep and the average is a lot more, I mean, the amount of big blinds I have would go up. But
Jerome will have first action.
What about Mark McLaughlin? Did you play with him?
no, I didn't.
You did not play with him at all?
No.
There you go. Well, he was, by the way, he was eliminated on the Stone Cold Bubble in
Oh.
the High Roller. He was one of the remaining players that had a chance at the Player of the Year. Needed to have a very high finish yesterday, and then either win or come in second in the main event in Vegas to win the Player of the Year, but was eliminated in 10th yesterday, which eliminated his chance. Dominic raises to 40,000. This is something new. Spindler folded. Spindler
Yes.
folded. Robbie calls. And we'll see this one heads up. Robbie calling from the big blind.
7, 6, Jack.
Spades, 6 of hearts.
Jack high flop, no suits.
Checks.
Robbie checks.
6, 4 bets, 50,000.
Continuation bet from Dominic.
50,000.
We also had a girl in contention for Player of the Year.
We did. Lonnie
That was
Harwood was in third place coming in. And,
Right.
she was far behind in third place and needed a couple of big
Yes.
scores. Unfortunately for her, she got pretty sick this week, and I think that really affected her game.
I was putting cold and flu tablets underneath her door each night to keep her going, but Yeah.
She actually asked me, I had some euros, and she asked me if she could buy the euros from me, and I said, sure. And then I think she was so sick, she just realized, she's like, you know what, I'm not going to play. I'm just going to go home.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's still good to see a female getting up there, you know, and having a chance to get the Player of the Year.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me. It surprised me that it was Lonnie Harwood only because I didn't know who she was until this year. That said, you look at the current crop of female players out there, and you know Vanessa Selp's leading that charge. But there are so many good players. Obviously, yourself, Jackie Glazier, and Amanda Musumeci, and Vanessa Russo, and Liv Barry, and the list goes on and on. I think it's only a matter of time. Gail Bauman, by the way, came in 7th, I believe, in the ladies' event here.
She did, yes.
So there's another lady who's just dominating the circuit. I think there's no doubt that a woman will make the World Series of Poker main event final table sometime in the next 5 years. And it doesn't surprise me at all to see women contending for Player of the Year.
Sure, and I mean a lot of the names you've mentioned have been on the circuit for a long time and have a lot of experience behind them. But I think that hopefully we'll see an influx of like new blood coming through and some young female players.
Get a raise from Spindler. Mateos calls. Rogovin has 3-bet out of the small blind. Why do you see, I've been talking to a lot of pros about this, and experienced pros tend not to call out of the small blind. They tend to either fold or 3-bet. Why is that?
I mean, obviously they're playing the hand out of position after.
But they call from the big blind, though. And they like the 3-bet from the small blinds.
I don't know. I do either the same for small blind or big blind. So.
I mean, is it because you close the action if you're in the big blind? In the small blind, you're not?
I mean, obviously you still have just one other player to act after you in the small blind, but I don't think it should be such a big factor. 1 player or 0 player. I don't know. I think no one really believes I'm valued in to call from a big blind or a small blind. It's, you know, I think those days are gone. But I think that people. I think it started online, the 3-betting from the small blind. People thought it was a good spot because it looked stronger than it was, but the game's always evolving. It changes all the time.
Safe to assume that you're 3-betting a little bit larger. Your bet size is a little bit larger from the small blind than it would be if you were 3-betting in position.
I generally try and keep all my 3-bets a little bit sort of similar, and or even my opens I keep a little bit similar as
Even
well.
if you're going to have to play the hand out of position. And Robbie, by the way, 3-betting pretty light with King 10 off suit.
Yeah.
Mateos had flatted with the Ace-3 of hearts, and don't see Spindler's hand. You see the final 2 cards, the final 2 players in the hand, or any hands that go to showdown is what we reveal. Going back to you know, women contending for Player of the Year, I know Vanessa Selp's won the, I want to say she won the 8-game bracelet a couple of years ago.
I think it was that.
What I'd like to see more women do, I'd like to see more women playing the mixed games. Because to contend for Player of the Year, I think, I mean, Lonnie Harwood contended with, you know, she actually made a final table of PLO 8, which is fairly impressive, and then made, obviously, won a bracelet in the No Limit Hold'em, made another final table in No Limit Hold'em. But to contend for Player of the Year, I think that you need to be not just proficient, but you need to be really, really good at those other games, the deuce to sevens, the studs.
I think those other games actually really help your Hold'em game as well. I think it's great to be playing them. Sometimes I suppose even when I'm in Vegas playing, I would love to play some of the mixed games, but there's just so many Hold'em games on every day, and that's my specialty, so it sort of seems not to make a lot of sense for me to enter a mixed game instead of a Hold'em game, especially, I mean, I know I can't get experience without spending more time on those games, but I'm there at the end to try and make some money and win a bracelet, and I think my best chance is in a Hold'em game. So if they're scheduled on a day where there is no Hold'em, it would be more tempting to me, but yeah, it's always a Hold'em game going.
Mateos raises, Spindler calls. Flop is 5-4-5, 2 clubs.
4 clubs, 5 of spades.
The women that are
Then checks.
exceptional at the mixed games, the ones that I think of, the Jennifer Harmons, the Cindy Violets, the Vanessa Selps, Harmon and Violet are not the best, you know, big pot games players anymore. They're not the best PLO players or no limit players anymore, and I think that prevents them from contending for Player of the Year.
Sure.
To me, right now, Selps is the one player that can because she plays all the games.
Yeah, I think Maria Ho plays a bit of mixed game as well. So, I mean, it's good to see ladies out there playing.
I love Maria Ho's game.
Yeah.
She came up playing limit.
Oh, okay.
More than anything, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's had some success in mixed games as well.
Then checks.
Well, coming from that limit background, it makes sense. Spindler checks. Action on Mateos. Pot is now 218,000. Club's got there, and Mateos is going to check it back. Mateos, just 19 years old, looking to become the second youngest bracelet winner of all time. The youngest, Annette Oberstad.
Yes.
Who won the World Series of Poker Europe main event as an 18-year-old in London.
I think I heard that Mateos was the youngest person to actually enter this event. Does that sound right? I suppose when you think about it, the most...
Could very well be. I can neither confirm nor deny.
He can't enter World Series of Poker Vegas, so why not come to Europe and enter it here?
Well, a lot of those online wizards, you know, travel Europe and play the EPTs and play the World Series of Poker Europe because they can play as 18-year-olds, get a ton of experience, and then you see him come to Vegas as a 21 or a 22-year-old, and you wonder, how are you so good?
Yeah.
And you realize that the guy's already got an EPT, you know, final table.
Right.
He's won a major online tournament. It checks down.
First to show.
Yes.
Then show the jack high.
Spindler with jack high.
Then you don't have to show. If you mark. I was going to say, if you
Spindler,
mark, you show 6-7.
Spindler called the flop.
Didn't want to move there.
Adrian wins this pot.
Spindler called the flop out of position. It went check, bet, call. What was Spindler? I mean, was he floating out of position to take it away if a
Possibly,
different card
and then
come?
change his mind when the turn card came.
Mateos hit the 9, had showdown value, and decided to check it back.
I mean, he did call the flop with a better hand as well.
There you go.
Maybe he had a read on something. I don't know.
Was he going to call all 3 streets with jack high?
No, I don't think so. I think he had a plan, but changed his mind after the turn card, possibly.
Spindler has already lost more than half his chips, and we are only 14 hands in. Spindler has been by far the most active player here. And if you're wondering if it's a little bit of deja vu, well, if you watch the APAC main event in April, you would have seen the exact same thing. Spindler came to the final table as the chip leader and exited in 6th place. This time he came to the final table with a bunch of chips, but he was 4th in chips. Dominic raising. Dominic wearing the sweatshirt on the right side of your screen. Fabrice Soulier, the Frenchman, right in the center of your screen, covering his mouth. Why do players cover their mouth? What's that about?
I've heard that they believe there's more tell from the mouth rather than the eyes these days. I mean, you don't see a lot of players wearing sunglasses anymore, but you sort of do see a lot. They will put their hand over their mouth during a hand.
I've never seen somebody foam at the mouth with a big hand or anything,
No.
but I suppose it's possible. Fabrice checks on a dry board.
But it's funny because there's days where I've played long days and at the end of it, my jaw is actually really sore, and it must be from doing some sort of clenching.
It might be where you hold your tension. I mean,
Yeah.
different people hold their tension in different places. Fabrice looks like he's going to call this, and he does. Red chips, once again, 25,000. Gray chips are 5,000. Those plaques are 100,000 each. Turns a jack.
Jack of clubs on the turn.
I mean, I used to cover my mouth when I first started playing that, but that was so I wouldn't smile when the card that I wanted to come out.
If Dominic double barrels this, and he is,
150.
is that, would that suggest that he has a hand more often than not? I mean, he's clearly capable of pulling a double
I was going to say,
bluff.
that's a difficult question when you're talking about Dominic.
But with that card, specifically, I mean, when the jack comes, you just feel like Fabrice has a lot of, like, queen tens, queen jacks in his range.
I I mean, definitely Dominic's got to think about the player he's playing against, and you're accurate. I think that definitely Fabrice is capable of sitting there with a hand like, you know, even, yeah, a queen 10 or
Fabrice
queen
calls.
9.
Fabrice makes the call.
Pot now over 500,000 chips. Two players staring at each other. It's actually kind of sweet. Top card pairs, and that's an interesting card, to say the least. One more check from Fabrice.
Dominic's one of these players, though. I mean,
And it checks it back. What does Fabrice have? Like,
I checked without looking.
right, yeah.
Oh, you checked the river without looking.
3 queens.
We're
Usually
on it.
announces
Queen
it.
10, queen 9.
Didn't do it.
You were waiting.
I was
He
looking.
was
at
he was
the
waiting.
river.
He was waiting for you to say the river card.
I didn't look at the flop.
I mean, I don't think it's
You're just, like, looking
inconceivable.
at
I mean,
me,
when
right?
we put Fabrice on Queen 10 or Queen Jack or something like that, he could also have had, like, you know, a small
Went
pocket
behind the
pair
window,
Right.
and be taking one off.
Yeah.
Don't
And maybe
lie, I'll
fold
see
to a
if
double
it's
barrel.
No, of
who
course you
knows?
were ahead.
I think Fabrice said I was going to call, and Dominic
Right.
says, yeah, of course you were going to.
I think
Dominic, by the way, he said that he checked without
Yeah,
looking, and
that river sure
even if he had looked,
helped
he wasn't
you.
betting.
Right. I think Dominic's
Fabrice,
game's great because he has a lot of gears. So a lot of hands, you're a little bit unsure about where you're actually positioned in the hand against him, which, you know, is a sign of a great poker player, I think.
Kind of a story of haves and have-nots. We have 3 players with at least almost 2.5 million chips. Nietzsche, Fabrice Soulier, and Adrian Mateos with 2.4 million, 2.9 million, and 3.6 million, respectively. The other 3 players, none of which have over $1 million.
C5, next to 45.
Adrian raised to 45.
How aware are you, or how aware should you be when you're playing on what your opponent's stack size is?
I think it's important, especially if there's hands where you want to put pressure on their stacks. It doesn't really matter whether they've got less chips than you even. If you're going to be making your bet sizes to put pressure on their stack size, then it's imperative that you know how much chips they have.
Mateos raising to 45,000. We'd like to keep the show as interactive as possible. You can send your tweets in to @WSOP or @TuckOnSports. We'll try to get to as many as we possibly can. By the way, earlier on I mentioned that 13 Frenchmen had won a World Series poker bracelet. I misspoke.
Oh, you've been corrected.
13 French people have won, because one of those French men is actually a French woman, and it is Vanessa Helebuc, who won the ladies' event in 2010.
There you go. You've
So,
stand corrected.
but 14 bracelets have been won by French people because Roger Harabedian became the first Frenchman to win 2 bracelets
Wow.
earlier this week. And
He's a pleasure to watch, too.
Benny is still not slow. But like I said, Benny is either going to win this tournament or be out of this tournament by 3 o'clock. Got a tweet here about Benny. @muted79 says, Spindler looks like Stu Unger. Do you think he tries to play like Stu Unger?